Welcome to the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. I'm thrilled you're here. My name is Jason Elkins, and in addition to being your host, I'm also a former U.S. Army paratrooper, third-generation commercial hot air balloon pilot, paramotor pilot, ex-Montana fly fishing guide, advanced open water scuba diver, and a full-time nomad that's visited more than 30 countries on 6 continents. As a seasoned adventure travel expert with a passion for creating and sharing meaningful experiences, I'm on a quest to impact the lives of adventure travelers, tour operators they rely on, and the communities that host them. Every week, I bring you exclusive interviews with fascinating adventure tourism experts who have agreed to share their personal stories, favorite destinations, and some invaluable travel insights they've picked up along the way. We'll enjoy a casual conversation, create some connections, and likely share some laughs. It's my hope that by the end of each episode, this big world will feel just a bit smaller. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. This is a big deal for me. We've got Kelsey Tonner here. I know some of you have heard that name. He is the founder of Guest Focus. I've been following him since I had a balloon ride business back in the day, and just picked up a lot of useful tips along the way. Kelsey, so happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you, Jason. Thanks for the kind intro.
Yeah. And you know, before I didn't really tip on what Guest Focus is. I really want to learn your story, kind of figure out how you got from where you were to where you are now. But before we get into that, let's give our listeners kind of the 30-second elevator pitch for what in the world is Guest Focus.
Yeah, look, big picture, we are tour and activity business coaches. So kind of a team, we're up to about 13 or 14 coaches. As we were saying before the call, we kind of, half of our coaches focus on multi-day tours. Half of our coaches focus on day tour operators. And what brings us all together is really trying to help folks build a thriving, profitable tour and activity business. And we'll talk a little bit about where we came from and how we got to where we are, but not dissimilar to yourself, we are the type of people that when we travel, we want to have the best possible experience. And we see kind of our broader mission to kind of push back on a lot of the, kind of mediocre, phone it in mass tourism experiences that we've all had out there, and instead kind of, be the change you want to be in the world, right? We have a community, let's say, of people that are really inspired to create memories that last a lifetime. And then hopefully through sharing some best practices, some things not to do, some things to do, we can build a thriving, profitable business that can keep those experiences in the world for decades to come.
That's great. I love that. It definitely resonates kind of with my mission of Big World Made Small, is just get people out there having these good experiences, connecting with other people in the world, and doing it the right way. So thank you for sharing that. So Kelsey, I know you've heard this question probably thousands of times. I'm not going to ask you any questions you haven't heard 1,000 times, and that's why I think our listeners like to come back, because I'm probably going to ask the same questions that they would ask if they were sitting with you right now. So let's start with, how in the world did you get to where you are? How far back do we need to go to kind of understand you, Kelsey?
Yeah, well, I'm Canadian by trade. So those astute American listeners will pick up on that subtle accent. But I'm originally from Nova Scotia, Canada. After university out there, basically took any job that allowed me to travel, to see the world, new people, new places. Definitely had that adventurous spirit. And so that led to all kinds of really incredible experiences from, I was a dog sledding guide in the Canadian Rockies for a season. I led wilderness trips through Wisconsin, the Boundary Waters for another season. Was down to Australia, leading high ropes course, and eventually picked up with Backroads Tours. And so, for those that aren't familiar, Backroads Tours is they have their claim, or their tagline is the number one kind of active travel company in the world. And so they do week-long bike tours, hiking tours, and multi-sport tours all over the world. And so this was just a dream come true that, hey, somebody would pay me to go on these trips. And so I spent about five and a half years working with Backroads, getting to lead these active and adventure tours in like 40 different countries around the world. Through them, eventually got into sort of mentoring and training other tour guides. We eventually got into tour design. I started taking over itineraries or building new trips. I remember one of my job, bilingual, growing up in Canada, so spent a lot of time working in France, and would go into a region like Burgundy. And at that time, this was one of the lower performing trips, let's say, in Europe. And so, okay, what do we need to do to tweak this itinerary? How can we find more memorable experiences? Really work with, try to figure out what they would optimize that guest experience. Anyway, so that
Hey, do you mind if
start there,
Kelsey?
yeah.
Do you mind? Yeah, do you mind if I ask you? Can we go back a little further? Because when I hear you say, okay, I finished school and then I went and did everything I could to travel and to have these experiences, and you and I both know that not everybody finishes college and is hell bent to go do that type of thing. So what happened to you maybe before college, growing up? What was going on that got you thinking? When did you start thinking that maybe you wanted to go do that stuff? Because I think that's an interesting part of it.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, not having a gap year really extends that 12-year slog of education onto another 4 years, going right into university. So I was ready for that shift. Going back and digging, there's got to be something in the DNA here.
Was there someone, the DNA, or was there someone in your life that inspired you? I've had a lot of conversations with people say, an uncle or my grandparents gave me a subscription to National Geographic or something like that. Yeah. I'm just like, what was going on when you were younger? Were you burning to go?
Yeah, both my folks were essentially in education. They were teachers and eventually administrators. And my dad, right when I was born, I'm the first of three brothers, he had done this sort of deferred leave where, put away, I think, a quarter of the salary for 3 years. And then essentially he did a year of travel that coincided with the year I was born. And so they really bumped around. So, I mean, I was pretty young, so I'm always a little bit, that's the story they like to say, that, hey, we've got, Kelsey here, and, gosh, what am I now? I've just turned 40 recently. Been incredibly fortunate to see, a lot of countries around the world. I think up to 79 or 80 countries or something like this. So they always tell that story where they're like, well, here he was as a baby, through Australia, through New Zealand, through Western Europe, through, here and there. But then we really settled down. Then we were just basically in Nova Scotia for this good run. And so something like that. I mean, I was always one for outdoors. I was always certainly one for adventure and being active. That was kind of through the Boy Scouts. And I remember working at summer camps. Never went to camp as a kid, but really loved doing those kind of trips, and some of that wilderness tripping that I was doing. That was just like a dream job before the travel. I was like, oh, wow, I could be out in nature and with a canoe, and people are paying me to do this. So I was definitely drawn to the outdoor nature experiences pretty young. And then,
so what did you decide when you went to university? What did you study?
Yeah, I did international development and philosophy was the minor. So it was pretty broad, like undergraduate experience. I took a lot of science courses, took a lot of different things, but that's. I had some opportunities to travel through university. I was involved with World University Service of Canada, where it was kind of an application process, but 20 university students from Canada are sent every year, and they go and work with a particular country. And so I was in sub-Saharan Africa and Burkina Faso. And so that was a pretty eye-opening experience, getting to not just travel, but also travel to a part of the world, one of the poorer countries in the world, but really have your mind open to the many different ways people are living around the planet, and how that can be a really enriching experience. You start to appreciate, there's so little that there's so little that I've experienced. So that was certainly part of it.
Okay. So now it all kind of makes sense to me. So when I said very few people just finish college and say, okay, I'm going to go start traveling. So that adds a lot of color to your story. So thank you. That's very helpful. So when you did finish school and start working in tourism, it probably wasn't a big surprise to your parents. Were they supportive of that? I know sometimes when somebody finishes college and goes to be a guide and doing stuff like that, they get some pushback from family. What about your family?
Yeah, they were very supportive. Wonderful, wonderful folks. They, again, simultaneous when I started to go to university, my dad actually became the administrator of a Canadian private school in Abu Dhabi, of all places. And so there was this kind of odd shift where here I was thinking that we'd done this travel and then we really didn't do anything for 12 years, at least in my opinion. We didn't have a lot of big international travel. And then basically the first year of university we went, my mom and dad kind of left the car, and then they were essentially overseas. They took my two younger brothers. And so, a lot of people in first year of university, they're still going home for Thanksgiving. Their mom's maybe still doing their laundry. I remember within a month of my mom and dad leaving, they're like, oh yeah, everything on the van is expiring, right? You got to go take it in and get it registered. You got to renew the insurance. So you got to do this. Oh, by the way, you have to go, close up the cottage, and all this sort of stuff. I was like, oh, okay. So there was a real thrust of independence that came with that.
I bet. And I'm curious about your siblings. Did they end up doing similar type of stuff, or was it just you? I mean,
yeah, the youngest
did that
certainly
upbringing impact them?
Yeah, the middle brother, I would say, is a little more of a homebody. He really had deep roots and connections to the community in Nova Scotia. And then youngest brother also got that travel bug, and so he actually got him a job. I was joking with Tom Hale. I think Tom Hale's the owner of Backroads Tours. And, we were celebrating Martin, who's my youngest brother, about 10 years with the company, maybe last year or something like that. And so I joked that years ago, I got paid $500 or something to get my brother hired at this company because they had a referral program. They're trying to get the best possible tour leaders.
Oh, okay.
And so I said, hey, man, you got 10 years out of this. I feel like there should be some residual, commissions or kickbacks, or can I at least get a, referrer of the decade or something like this. So anyway, he's still working with, and the curious angle here, or fun angle, is I met my now wife and mother of my kids working through Backroads, and Martin has done the same. So he also ended up connecting, marrying, and now having kids with a Backroads leader. And Tom Hale affectionately calls this within Backroads the leader breeder program. I don't know if other companies are quite large enough to have this, but there are some 30 to 40 marriages and kids that have come from these types of connections. So kind of a neat, you don't always get a wife out of your job. Yeah.
Well, and actually, a lot of the people I speak with and a lot of people that I've worked with in the past in this business, that can be one of the challenges for working in this industry is relationships, because not everybody values, not everybody has the same values. And typically the people that, like yourself and I, that work in this space really value that exploration and those opportunities to go do things. And sometimes if we don't realize how much we value it, we find ourselves in relationships with people that maybe value new bedroom sets or new kitchen remodels or houses or cars, and that can be a challenge. So
we quickly found that when my girlfriend at the time, when you're trying to line up schedules, but if you think about working for these multi-day tour companies, we were regularly going to different trips, different countries. And so you kind of had this choice to line up, and you could work together so long as you showed that you could do this professionally, or you could line up your time off. And we quickly found that it was a lot better just to line up the time off. We tend to be, these are long days on adventure tours, and it's easy to get short with maybe a girlfriend or significant other in a way that you may not with someone, a total stranger that you just happen to be working with and meet for the first time. So once we started lining up our time off, that was a big unlock for us, and it really allowed the relationship to deepen, because one of the perks of Backroads was you kind of had this network of, they're called like leader houses, but essentially the rough schedule would be you work 2 trips on and then you'd have a week off. But maybe you're in Switzerland, or maybe you're in South Africa or Morocco, or we worked a few years in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand. And so we had this opportunity, to essentially do our own travels, our own adventures, our own bicycle trips. And so we really had some bucket list adventures together, facilitated through that job. And we always kind of took that, allowed us to do the Walker's Haute route in the Alps. We did a couple months trekking in Patagonia. We did a month-long bike trip through South Africa that was outside of work, but certainly facilitated by that kind of job. So pretty special way to connect with your significant other.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like maybe you weren't doing the same group, same departure, but in the same geographical area, work a couple weeks, get off. You're
Exactly.
both already in Europe. You're already in Southeast Asia. You go do things. I guess I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but I can see that experience is something that you're probably, I can imagine, able to help with some of your clients. I mean, I don't know. I haven't been on one of your coaching calls. I don't know how that goes, but typically everything is involved with business. And in coaching, it's like, okay, what's getting in the way? And I suspect you've run into situations where you've got clients that are having marital issues or relationship issues that can greatly impact their business. And what I just heard from you was great, really great coaching advice. Maybe instead of working with your spouse in the business.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Does that come
Yeah.
up sometimes?
You know, it's fascinating. We typically steer away from that sort of more personal side of it. I think inevitably it comes up when we have our one-on-one sessions. The model of our coaching program is one where we're leaning into best practices, and we wanted that mentorship and accountability. But it's still relatively limited compared to maybe a life coach where you're spending 3 or 4 hours together a week, or maybe a business coach that you're hiring really is more of a consultant type role. And so I think just because the nature of our calls are a little bit shorter, typically a 30 to 45 minute call every couple of weeks. We may not have the time to go so deep on that, but okay. I mean, no question. The boundaries blur here when we're talking about something like time blocks, or hey, we committed to getting something done in the business and it doesn't get done. That's going to come up of like, hey, what's going on here? Do we have some kind of
what's getting in the way?
Yeah, what's getting in the way? And so that can dredge up a whole pile of stuff there.
I'm curious, Kelsey, did you spend some time? You obviously learned a lot about tourism, adventure travel, all of the stuff that we've been discussing. The coaching part of it, is that just something that just came naturally for you? Did you go through some sort of coaching program yourself? Because coaching is a unique thing. It's different than consulting, right? Coaching is that, okay, what are you committed to this week? What are you going to do? What are your action steps? And then when they come back the next week, okay, what did you commit to last week? Okay, what did you actually do? And what got in the way? So I'm curious what your background is in coaching.
Yeah, I never received any formal training, let's say as a coach, and honestly, for a lot of our coaches, maybe a quarter of them had some background with coaching, but by and large, they haven't had a whole lot of experience in that. And partly the reason is we wanted to draw on that pool of doers, the people that have built and scaled and been in the trenches, and then part of what we do is then provide them kind of more infrastructure, more support as coaches where, hey, maybe if you're jumping onto our coaching team, you don't have to have an encyclopedic knowledge of all these best practices. But what you're contributing to the team is your background, often expertise. Like some of our coaches, Midgie Moore comes to mind, who's up in Alaska. She just does a ton of work with the cruise ships and cruise industry, and so she's an invaluable kind of resource to the program. But we don't expect her to have an in-depth knowledge of maybe other aspects of the travel trade industry or whatever the case might be. And so we back up our coaches with this kind of success path of, and everything that we put in the success path is really grounded in practical. Like what drives us crazy, and certainly drove me crazy, was hearing very like theoretical or pie in the sky, or you hear some advice and then you don't even know how to get started implementing it. And there's a lot of that is floating around. And so we always try to just bring it right down to the practical. And that was only possible because we focused so clearly on tour and activity businesses. And we could be talking about, hey, here's a pricing calculator that one of our coaches shared. And, here's a short training video, how you can use this. You don't have to reinvent it from scratch. Or, hey, here's how we can optimize our sales pages. Or here's, and so, back to the core question, which was, hey, did we invest in a coaching program? We did. This model that we took, this kind of group coaching program where we layered in accountability and one-to-one mentorship, we enrolled in, I forget, this is 2 years back, that was probably like a $25,000 or $30,000 group coaching program by someone that we really respected, we saw in the industry. And so we were able to experience kind of a program executed at a really high level, one that was really impactful, but could be scaled. So we learned a lot, and have taken some of those courses, certainly education, invested in our own kind of know-how and knowledge in that way. But in terms of a coaching certification, it was never something that I had. My mom and dad will also tell you that them being teachers probably has quite a bit to do with where we ended up. I had a friend bring this up to me whose parent was also a teacher. And she said, don't you realize how lucky we were to have parents that were teachers? That the way that they related to us, the way that they probably coached us, educated us, supported us at home in a way that so many other kids didn't. And they became obviously masterful at that over a career. And that hadn't really clicked before, but no doubt there was a lot of that in that makeup as well.
No, it seems like a real natural fit. I've heard it referred to as the heart of a teacher, as somebody that's open and curious and wants to support people in their journey. And that's not something that everybody has. There may be some great, I'm sure you've experienced this, some great tour operators out there that are great in their business, but maybe you're not the best person to be coaching other tour operators.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
I think you put your finger on kind of what we discovered as we started growing the team and looking for who were those diamonds in the rough who could not just run the tour business, but I think had a generosity of spirit and a certain inherent ability to meet people where they're at, to be a guide. And those tour business owners that came up and were guides themselves, they had that firsthand experience with facilitating experiences, facilitating transformations in some case with their guests. They're, I think, easier to come by in our industry than maybe another industry where there's a little less focus on that human to human element.
And yes, and there's still, I remember as we're having this conversation, I remember back to when I was a fly fishing guide in Montana and ran a guide service there. And we had this guide, he was really good with his clients. His clients loved him. They'd go out, catch a bunch of fish, have a great time. But boy, he was not going to share any information with any of the other guides. And he would come back with pictures of big fish, but then he would lie about where he was. And I'm not knocking him. It's just his personality. So, he's got great reviews, great, TripAdvisor stuff, whatever. But he's not the guy you're going to hire to come in and train a bunch of new guides, because he's just kind of had that mentality, that scarcity mindset, which I think, you and I were speaking, I can't remember if it was before I pushed the record button or not, but you and I were speaking kind of about, the mission of just kind of making better experiences for everybody, not just, whether it's your competitor or not. So for example, I'm in Colombia. If someone comes to Colombia and has a bad experience, if I'm a tour operator in Colombia and someone comes here and has a horrible experience with my competition, they're not going to go home and say, oh yeah, don't go with that guy in Colombia. They're going to say, we had a bad experience in Colombia, period.
Yep.
And that can impact me as a tour operator here as well. So does that align kind of with your philosophy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was basically to connect it back to our personal story, after I was had met my wife, we had done 4 or 5 years with Backroads. When we looked at starting a family, we kind of looked at that next chapter of our life. We realized this would be pretty challenging to do from the back of a bicycle. And so we kind of had to do this work to be like, well, what do we want to put into the world? How can we help? How can we be of service? And that's where we kind of looked at this experience on any given multi-day tour. What do you get to experience as, let's say, a tour director or somebody who's facilitating it? It's like, well, there's any number of subcontractors of, restaurants and hotels, but even on a typical day, we might have 1 or 2 other guides or experience hosts, tour leaders who we got to experience, we got to appreciate. It certainly helped that Backroads is one of the most quality obsessed companies that I think I've ever encountered. And so they wanted to make sure if you had a guide on that trip, this was not just any guide or not just one that was available, but this was a real world-class experience. And so it was this exposure and through osmosis, getting to firsthand appreciate, wow, what made these tour leaders and guides exceptional? What made these businesses that were creating experiences for travelers so unique? And so that's really where we had this incredible advantage to be able to try and articulate it, put it into words. We started a YouTube channel where we were really, we started as Be a Better Guide. We really sang, like, hey, let's focus on that facilitation, the tour leaders.
I remember that.
and so that was the first 4 or 5 years. The business model at that time was our online courses, essentially education that could help you excel as a tour leader, help join this again, creating a community of people that wanted to elevate what it meant to create an experience for folks. And so that was initially, and then the kind of evolution to getting into entrepreneurship and business was we just kept showing up and asking people. And as our audience grew and community grew, and said, well, what are you struggling with? How can we help? And that's when questions started coming up, like, well, how do I price my tours? That's something I've always struggled with. And like, I don't really know how to do sales pages. This is a common challenge of people who are great potentially at facilitating that experience, can really struggle to put that into words. By the way, most of us in this industry don't have a background in sales and e-commerce. That wasn't usually part of the journey to get to where many of us are here today. And so that's basically the evolution as we said, okay, there's a real need here to support people who are a little more entrepreneurial, people that wanted to turn this maybe a gig or this job or into a business, and potentially even a business that would support their lifestyle. And so the evolution of the name from Be a Better Guide to Guest Focus kind of happened as we shifted that focus. We still have a lot to say about how to create incredible experiences, how to recruit, hire, and train the most amazing guides in the world. But when we were really thinking about that term guest focus, we absolutely fell in love with it because it still had that same DNA, which is to be obsessive, to care more than your competitors, care more than anyone else about the guest experience on your tour. And that's the big unlock to having success in this space.
What do you think is so obviously the people that reach out to you, that come to you, or maybe you reach them through some sort of outreach, but they're aware of you and they follow you, maybe they sign up for one of the coaching programs. You mentioned a couple things that they kind of come to the table with. How do I do this? How do I do that? I'm curious on your, maybe on your initial intro call, strategy call. I can't remember exactly what you call it on your website, but what are the top 2 or 3 things that you see the most? It's almost like if you're training someone new, you're going to hear these things on these calls. What comes to mind? Edit. Can you hear me right now, Kelsey?
I can. Yeah, I saw it drop out there. So I just missed that last question. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was losing you quite a bit, but you kept talking. So I was like, it's going to be good on the back end. So I'll go in and edit this little cutout. Is there anything you think you can do to improve your network right now before I continue?
I can switch to the mobile, but I don't actually know if it's going to be better. It's the same network, unfortunately. Let's give it a shot.
Overall, it's been pretty good. So I'll just kind of try and pick up kind of where I left off. So
cheers.
Edit. So Kelsey, when you've got a new person that comes to you, they're on your website, they click the link, they book a call with you. They know they've got some opportunities to improve their business. They're open to it. But when they come to that first call with you or with one of your coaches, what are the typical things you hear that come up, almost to the point where you could train a new coach and say, you're going to hear these 3 things pretty much on every call, and what's behind those 3 things?
Yeah, You would appreciate this, I think, as a marketer by trade, or certainly having that background, that everybody often comes with this challenge of, I just need to get my tour in front of more people. Right? They really come in with a sense of, oh, if I could just sort out the marketing, if I could just figure out that one hack or that one Facebook ad tactic or X, Y, or Z, then all my problems would go away. And so that's typically where we meet people at. But we're often then moving backwards to something more fundamental, which is that we may not have a really clear idea on who our ideal target guest is. We may be trying to be too many things to too many people. We're taking a limited marketing budget and spreading it too thin across a broad range. So that's typically where we're meeting people at, is, hey, how do I get my experience in front of more people? And I think the big unlock of when we looked out at some of the most successful tour and activity businesses on the planet, the thing that really jumped out was that many of them had really niched down, and they were trying to serve a small, even micro niche within the larger group of either inbound or outbound travelers, potentially locals. And that it just solved so many problems. It allowed you to, most importantly, I would say, serve those people at the highest possible level. It allowed you to have a unique value proposition, to be able to differentiate yourself from alternates, from competitors. And so while having a really tight, people sometimes and certainly may have heard the term ideal customer avatar, same sort of thing here. We just love the term guest because we feel it captures obviously the space that we're in and how we want people to feel when they're with us. But having that ideal target guest isn't just about spending your marketing resources more efficiently. It's actually much more fundamental. It's actually about adjusting the tour design, adjusting the experience to be the best possible experience for that specific individual, that they have those specific pain points or those specific dream scenarios. And those look really differently, even for someone like you and someone like I who have a shared interest in adventure travel and active travel. I bet a lot of the same sort of tours and experiences would appeal to us both. But guess what? I got 3 girls under 7, 7, 5, and 3. I'm going to come with a lot of unique needs. I'm going to have very different priority lists of what that adventure experience might look like for me. And if it was perfectly optimized around my family, my needs, my itinerary, my schedule, all those types of things. And so that's where I think it's often lost on many operators, yes, in adventure travel, but across all of the different verticals in tourism, in hospitality, that when you can get that product market fit, that's really when you've got the right offer for the right person. And so much of that is not just, oh, hey, here's this latest Facebook marketing hack. It's actually, we have to go back, really, we refer to it in our coaching as do a guest deep dive. But let's not just make assumptions about what those individuals want, what some of their frustrations are, what some of their dream scenarios are, but let's actually have a dialogue and a conversation with them. That's going to set you up for success to not only design the offer, but man, to put together a banging sales page, to be able to use the language of your customers, of the people that you're trying to serve. And sometimes we make business harder than it needs to be. It's like, hey, how do I have success? Like, ask somebody what they want and then give it to them, right? Sometimes this is about as simple as it is. And sometimes the flip. Ask somebody what they don't want, what drives them crazy and what they're trying to avoid. And you position your tour, your activity experience as something that stays 100 miles away from those things. Hey, we give you the easy button and we'll take all those things off your plate. That's how you have a really compelling sales page. That's how you really have a successful, thriving, profitable tour business.
Very, very cool. So I'm curious about the kind of the process. So you've got that first call. You just kind of explained some of those things that just keep coming up. and maybe that they're not aware of when they get there. But you also mentioned you've got a bunch of coaches. It sounds like with a variety of different kind of areas of expertise. So when someone books that initial call with you guys, do you use part of that call as you're going to be working with the person that took the call, or is part of the process figuring out who to pair you up with for the one-on-ones? Because I know you do kind of a group coaching then with one-on-ones as well.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah, so I think the initial call, we offer a free 45-minute strategy call with one of our coaches. To me, that's really kind of the middle to bottom of the funnel, so to speak. So all we're really looking to deliver during that call is making sure that an operator that calls in or somebody that's looking to get some advice on their tour activity or experience business, they come away with that call with some real practical strategies, with feeling like they got a ton of value out of that call. So that's goal number one. It is a way for us to do a couple other things, like some qualification to assess, hey, do we think that this person is a good fit for the coaching program? And that's not everyone that books a strategy call, for sure. We're at a stage now where we can be, a little more picky with our clientele, and we've started to find out which businesses really click well with us, which you got to have the right mindset and certainly an open mind to be able to work with a coach or mentor. So sometimes if we're getting on a strategy call and we're offering advice, this is a real good test. Say, hey, here's another way of looking at this, or hey, have you thought that? And if you get a lot of pushback, a lot of resistance, or no, that would never work. It's like, hey, it sounds like you got this figured out.
Oh, you don't understand my business. That would never work. Yeah.
No problem. It sounds like you got this figured out. Anything else we can help you with? But those are some of the indicators during those initial calls that will allow us to make the call on whether we would then take the next step to invite them into the coaching program. During onboarding, we do a coach matchup process that kind of gets to what you were asking about, of like, well, hey, how do you do that matching? That's based on the coach availability. It's based on their business. And then we can get started with the program. But even at the top of funnel, the way most people hear about us is probably a little bit maybe years ago, how you end up hearing about what we were up to, which is through a YouTube video, or maybe a download or a guide. We've done lots of workshops with various partners, maybe with booking software partners, with marketing agencies, anyone that's really serving in this industry. We really tried to take that Costco approach, where we have lots of free samples. If you're going to ultimately sell coaching,
or maybe
advice.
Podcasts, you go on somebody's podcast, somebody hears about it there.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, this is the type of outreach. But what we really want people to do is, check out that YouTube video, but not just take it passively, but we're offering really practical, down-to-earth advice. Like, go try this right now in your tour business. Whether that's a guiding tip, whether that's a way to make your sales page more effective, whether that's a way to reach maybe some new clients, or a creative best practice around a marketing strategy. Go and get some results before you ever ask us, hey, how can I give you money? Or hey, how do you make money? We want them to have those results, so that when they're ready to come and have that conversation, we've already got a leg to stand on. Hopefully you're coming into that with a sense of like, hey, that really worked. I wonder what else they've got. Or, wow, hey, I really already got some results. And if we can, that's pretty typical for the way that people find their way to us.
I want to tell you, Kelsey, actually part of why we're having this conversation is I've been aware of you for quite a while, and I got one of your emails kind of talking about the landing pages, sales pages. And as somebody who's into website design, I got pretty excited, honestly. I watched one of your videos and I was like, oh yeah, yep, I see that. That makes sense. I want to go back and rework some of my stuff. And that was fairly recently. And that was free. I'm on your free email list, and I immediately, oh man, I really want to talk to Kelsey. So, I'm not having a conversation with you now about signing up for your coaching program. Maybe I will. But it definitely made me want to reach out to you and have this conversation. So,
well, I appreciate that.
It's obviously working in your business. Yeah. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Look, we mentioned actually, this tour sales pages. You probably get this a lot, especially working on people's websites, is that there's a lot of room for improvement. There's a lot of small optimizations that maybe aren't that time consuming, that people who are creating experiences, whether they're day tours, whether they're multi-day tours, that they can make these tweaks to the website to help them really put into words, let's say, how great their experience is, leverage some of the well-established e-commerce best practices that, quite frankly, are often overlooked. And so those types of just small tweaks can make a big difference to whether or not somebody's going to click that, check availability, that book now, if they're ready and willing to move forward. So that's another place where we're regularly meeting people at, because most people have a pretty good sense of like, nobody's happy with their website, or they always know that it could be better. So that's another great place where we can deliver lots of initial value. And we, like we said, we try and put that out into the world free of charge.
Do you think that, because I know ego can get involved, some people in this business have pretty good sense of self, and maybe some of them have designed their own websites. That's something I run into sometimes. I'm having a conversation. They designed their website 20 years ago, and they're rightfully proud of it. When they did it, they learned a skill set. They did it themselves. They should be proud of it. But do you think that sometimes that's a big thing that gets in the way? Like the person that designed his own sales page is much, maybe sometimes less likely to take the coaching than somebody who's just can set that ego aside and just say, look, I don't care that I designed it. I want to do it the right way.
Yeah, people feel a very often close relationship with their website, especially if they are in that category of they put a lot of effort into that. So yeah, no question, that's an error. What you were pointing out is common. Where we try to meet people at is, well, let's measure this. It's like, it doesn't really matter if you like it more or not. Is it helping you drive more bookings or not? And I'm sure you use that line an awful lot. We can be agnostic about how this makes you feel. If the goal here is to convince more people, if it's to grow our revenue and get more people onto this experience, then let's that be our guide versus just aesthetic preference, or what we're often getting people out of their established ruts. So that's where we are often meeting people at.
Right before we started this conversation, I went and took another look at your website. And one of the things I noticed, it was like so clear and just like, okay, this is what we do. Here's how you take your action. There wasn't a bunch of stuff about how great Kelsey is, how great the coaches are. It was like, I knew what I was looking at. I knew where the next steps were, and I wasn't getting distracted by a bunch of bells and whistles. So kudos to you on that website. So,
well, that rule applies to Kelsey, us as well. We are always looking to improve our own website, but that's a great little takeaway, and even maybe a value for people that are either getting started or you're looking for ways to optimize. Make it really clear how to do business on your website. We tend to get caught up in a lot of other things. And sometimes Donald Miller, who does Business Made Simple, I think has a really good job of emphasizing this, where he calls out web pages where he's like, I don't know what it is you do. It's like, you know what you do, but I don't know how to do business with you. I don't know what the next step is. I don't really know what the last step is. So sometimes just having that second set of eyes on your website can go a long way. I was on some calls this morning where somebody was talking about, and they're like $1 million plus operators. And I'm saying, I'm looking at your homepage. I don't know if you do group tours to Ireland. I don't know if you do custom tours. It was just not clear to me at all what their product and service was. And I said, oh, wow, that's surprising. This is what we do. I was like, oh yeah, you should put that on your website. what you just said.
Well,
we're up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I get it. Sometimes we're so close to our things. It's like we just think everybody must understand what it is we do. And because we live it, breathe it, eat it, sleep it. So obviously I do group tours, whatever. But somebody that's just landed on your website for the first time, man, you really don't want to make them dig that hard. So, hey, Kelsey, one of the things I wanted to touch on real quick is because you'd mentioned before I hit the record button, you'd mentioned that you actually have a tool that anybody that's listening to this might benefit from, and it's kind of one of those freebies. Provide some value. And I told you that if it came up in this conversation, we'd make sure it shows up in the show notes so people can take advantage of that. So is that something you still want to do? Is that what would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah. You can go to YouTube and you can check out. We cover lots of aspects of how to successfully create, market, and sell an experience. And we're pretty broad on that. Whatever that looks like, whoever you're selling it to, whether that's somebody that's more local, maybe they aren't a traditional traveler, maybe they aren't traditionally in tourism. A lot of these best practices will still apply. And the free tool that you can download is kind of just a sample from our program, but it's a 40-page workbook called the Irresistible Tour Descriptions. And basically, we try to break this down into a really practical approach to improving conversion rate, to having a more compelling way of sharing your experiences on a sales page. And so we have 12 elements. We call them the 12 essential elements of an irresistible tour description. And you can kind of go through each one and just ask yourself, hey, is this present on my website? And it can be something as simple as, hey, do we have an FAQ, a frequently asked questions section specifically on an individual experience page that's maybe overcoming some of the concerns and hesitations that people might have. Some of the reasons that they may have to get on the phone with you or send you an email before they buy. Boy, we sure want to answer those questions on a sales page that's online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That should be your best salesperson. And a best salesperson should really do a good job of anticipating what some of those concerns might be. It could be something as simple as having a lowest price guarantee. Just putting those words on your own sales page. We call this risk reversal, where we're trying to take away that concern of, could I get this cheaper somewhere else? Maybe I should shop around. Should I check TripAdvisor or Viator and see if it's cheaper there? Well, we can eliminate that risk. We can give people peace of mind by saying, no, hey, if you book directly here on this webpage or by giving us a call, we guarantee this is the lowest price that you'll find. So just small best practices like that. You can check it out on our website, but I believe we put together a URL at guestfocus.com/big world, where you can go in and grab a copy for yourself. Or again, if you got a friend or a colleague or someone that might find that of interest, by all means, feel free to pass it along to them.
Part of why I brought it up, Kelsey, part of why I brought it up is because when we're done with this conversation, I'm going to do some editing and get everything uploaded and put that link in. I'm going to click the link myself and I'm going to go get it and look at it as well. So I know it's going to be good stuff. So anybody that has any interest in this stuff, go click the link. Kelsey, we discussed a lot of things, but I think we could probably do a whole season of episodes with you about these topics. But I want to know, what did I forget to ask, or what should I have asked that's important for our listeners to hear before we wrap it up?
Well, I'd love to even ask you this question. I don't know how often your guests get to ask you questions, and I'd be happy to answer it afterwards. But given you're running the show, you're interviewing all these great people. When you get asked, hey, what has been one of your most memorable, let's say, guided experiences? It could be a day tour, it could be a multi-day trip. Do you have a go-to answer? Because I know I get asked that a lot. But do you find yourself answering that question?
What is one of my favorite?
Yeah. Or most memorable, most impactful.
That question is, what is my favorite? Or you and I both know that we have a little bit of a technical issue going on. I know that the end result's going to sound great. Nobody's going to recognize this, but do me a favor and just repeat the question so I can make sure I get it answered.
You got it. The question that I get asked a lot, and I'd love to hear your answer to it first, if you're game, is what has been your most memorable active travel experience? When you think back, the one that stands out in your mind. I get asked this question a lot. I'd love to hear what.
Yeah. Yep. I got it.
Do you have a go-to?
Yep, I got it, and I've shared it. Yeah, I do, and it was actually, I was doing a fam trip as part of the ATTA World Summit down in Namibia several years ago, and we went out. A bunch of other tour operators, buyers, or whatever went out on this fam trip. And the operator we're with took us to this place, and it's like, okay, we're just getting started here. We haven't done any groups here, but we think it's going to be great. And I remember they executed everything flawlessly. But what was most impactful was one night at dinner, they had somebody come back. Somebody came in and kind of whispered in the ear and pulled the guide aside. And the guide came back over and says, oh, you guys, one of our team members found something over the next ridge. And it's really, really cool. We don't know exactly what it is, but if you guys want, we can get up in the morning and we'll take you out there and we'll look at it. And I think it's going to be really cool. And of course, we're all like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. You know, this is an adventure. And they got us up the next morning and we walked, and I'm sure we could have drove to it, but we walked and walked and walked. And we get there and there's some burial mounds, and they're like, we're not sure. We think maybe there was a battle in this area. We've never seen this, dude. Boom, 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 boom. And we all just kind of sat around and talked about what maybe had happened and imagined. And then at the end of the day, you know, we had lunch, we get back to camp, and I was like, they should do that every week. And then it occurred to me, maybe they do.
Amazing.
You know, and then like a couple days later, we were driving up over the mountains down to the beach, and the Land Rovers kept getting stuck in the sand, and we're like, oh my God, we're going to die out here. But then they would get it out. You know, 20 minutes, they'd get it out. We'd keep going. And when we got to the beach, we're like, wow, we survived. And the same thought occurred to me again. I was like, man, they should do that every week. Maybe they do. And to this day, I think it was Wilderness Safaris. I can't remember the operator, but I was like, man, you've got a group of tourism professionals. And we were all like, wow, that was the most amazing experience. And I was like, yeah, they should just duplicate that every week. So that was my experience. I still to this day don't know how staged it was, but they executed it really well.
Yeah, that's tremendous. I love those. The one that I mean, there's countless guides and tour leaders that stand out over the years. But I do remember one experience in Belize, and it was really going into this sort of flooded cave network. And basically, you followed this guide, you had to swim across the swimming hole. And I had this, I think it was especially memorable because my mom and my dad were on the trip with me. And so, I couldn't believe mom and dad were doing some of this stuff. I don't think they knew what they had signed up for. But, you kind of float through this cave network, and, just your head can pass through. And then we climb up, and then these like incredible ancient, skeletons like in the flow stone, and, where you're caving and kind of like spelunking. And it was honestly one of the more memorable experiences, mornings with my mom and dad and with Sarah, my wife. But it really had to do with how the guide set it up, the anticipation, how he was able to quickly build rapport, and a little bit of that sense of adventure. Man, oh man, it's pushing the comfort zone. I think is a key ingredient here, and that's a task that you have to do pretty delicately. But if done well, boy, you can have some transformational experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very cool. Well, I certainly appreciate you coming on here, sharing that story and everything else we've kind of have touched on today. I know there's a lot more. Again, we're going to have those links in the show notes. And anybody, if this is the first time you've heard Kelsey, I'm sure it won't be the last time, because you're all of a sudden that your radar is on. You're going to go over it, look at his website. And Kelsey, I look forward to collaborating on some more projects with you in the future. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I trust you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're enjoying the Big World Made Small podcast, please take a moment to tell the algorithm by subscribing and posting a review so that others can benefit as well. I also invite you to take a quick trip over to bigworldmadesmall.com and join our private adventure travel community to receive new episode notifications, special access to our guest experts, and perhaps even some exclusive partner offers that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I'll publish another episode soon. Until then, keep exploring. It's the best way to make a big world feel just a bit smaller.